Sunday evening across the West Midlands. Hope you're well. It's the West Midlands Football Podcast here from Birmingham TV. We're going to look at all of the weekend's action involving our teams. 2 weeks since we were last here because of the lack of Premier League action for our teams. And we're delighted to say that that is not the case this weekend. You're with me, Ben Ellis, and joining me this week is Gavin Longthorne. Gav, good evening. Right, try that again.
Good evening, you okay?
I'm good. We've got you. We've got you. One or two technical glitches,
Okay,
which
good.
means we are slightly late in starting. But we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, and we're on Twitter as well. Looking back at the weekend's action, I'm going to start, Gav, as you hear, as a resident Wolves fan, because it's fresh in our memory because it happened today. Burnley 1, Wolves 0 at Turf Moor. I caught a bit of this game today. I don't know how much of it how much of it you saw, but you know, as a Villa fan, I've got to ask you, why didn't we get this Wolves 3 weeks ago when we played you?
Well, this is it, isn't it? Unfortunately, I watched the whole thing, Ben, but it wasn't very good viewing. First 20 minutes seemed to have the dictation of the game. Wolves set the pace of the game. It looked what it was, if I'm going to be honest. It looked like a team who was 8th against a team who was 18th before the game started today. I just don't know what it is, if I'm going to be honest with you. I think there's this thing where we still struggle against teams like this where we have the knack of letting them back in the game. It's so irritating because I was talking to people today. I think this is got to be like the 5th or 6th opportunity now this season where we have no right to be back in this top 6 race. Had a sniff, gone somewhere with the greatest respect to Burnley. They went there and beat us today, but we shouldn't have let them because we were the better team, or I think we are a better team. But we let them be the better team through the way we played today. As you said, as a Villa fan, if I was watching that, I'd be thinking, well, where was this Wolves team 3 weeks ago when we played them? I know it does make you wonder sometimes. I mean, so I was talking to people today. Watch some of those players out there on the pitch today, and the manager's clearly said that he wants a style of play that he wants to play with. That wasn't it today, by a long while. Spoke about it about Aston Villa a couple of weeks ago and the week before about that. Don't be surprised if you see a couple of shock names leave the club. I would feel the same about Wolves. I'm going to be honest with you. I think this is where it's going to be a crucial point in the summer transfer window and who leaves and who he brings in. I mean, I don't know what portion of the game you watch, Ben, but this thing with the back four, right? I haven't got a problem with playing a back five, but I think we could be better without a back five, and I think the manager thinks that as well. But why does it take every time that we're behind with 15 minutes in a game for him to risk taking a centre half off and go with the back four and play an extra attacker? Because you could see what was going to happen after they scored the first goal and then we brought on Pedro Neto. You could tell, well, okay, I know what's going to happen if this is still 1-0. It's going to be 15 minutes to go. He's going to take off centre half and bring on Trinko. You could see what was going to happen. So why is this hesitation to move towards this philosophy of a back four being shown by the manager? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. It wasn't the worst performance of the season, but it was the most disappointing with what was on the line. I've got to tell you, because I think, you know, we played a team today where they've got something to fight for and they're fighting for their life. And they're in the same position where, speak about last week, they're back in this position where they shouldn't have a right to be in, the same as us really with the top 6 race. But we've gone there and made it easy for them when we've got better quality of player, and we've just let them win the game today.
Well, I saw up to the first 20 minutes, up to where Johnny got that shot in at the edge of the box, which was palmed around the post, and then I saw most of the second half. You see, obviously, a lot more of Wolves than I do, and you talk about this, whether it's a back five or whether it's a back three. to me, and as I say, you see more of Wolves than I do. You play a back three because your best defender is the middle of those three, and he can't run. So the other two do the running for them. Is that the case with Connor Cody? Is he getting on there?
I think
have his legs gone?
I don't think his legs were ever there, Ben. If I'm going with the greatest respect to him, I don't think he ever had legs. I think this is a position where I think when Nuno came into the club, he saw that he had those leadership qualities. And with the greatest respect to him, I wouldn't think he'd make that position, but he made it his own when he did play that back through. He's got his limitations. He has got his limitations. This is the thing, isn't it? I mean, I think this is why you're never going to see him play in the back four for England in a major tournament. With the greatest respect to him, I just don't think it's going to happen. If they do go forward with that back four, I don't think he's going to be in the plans, because I think you've got players there that look like they could do your job better at that position. But the way it stands at the moment, I suppose, with the manager, like I said earlier on, I think he's gone in there and he's got an idea of what he wants to do, but I think he's limited to what he can do, because when he came in last August, he had 2 or 3 players he wanted, he didn't get them. And in January, there was situations, obviously, where he couldn't sign players due to financial fair play being monitored more, coming to the end of that 3-year cycle. But it's going to be a very interesting summer. I think you're going to see, as you say, I think we're going to see players come in, but I think you're going to see some players that are going to leave the club that you're going to think, oh, well, wasn't expecting that. Or you think I was someone that would be there for a couple more seasons at least. For me, I think Romain Saiss is going to be one that's going to be gone. From what you're reading, I don't think he's going to sign another contract. I think he's going to be one that's out the door. For me, I think that's a shame, because you talk about Connor Cody, I think he does have something that could offer you something in the back four, at least as a squad player. But it's just, I'm trying to not just get annoyed about talking about today, because it's so infuriating as a football fan. I know that you've been there as a Villa fan as well, but it's like you've been, as a fan, we've been dangled a carrot for the 6th, 7th, 8th time this season now. We spoke about it 2 weeks ago, we spoke about it 6 weeks ago, we spoke about it 8, maybe 10 weeks ago, where we had these results, and you think, oh, well, this is showing the limitations of, well, we're not going to get into Europe. We're not going to get a European spot. And it just seems to be that we come to these games where we should be bossing them, and we're just not doing it. And it's just so infuriating, because, like I said, with the greatest respect to Burnley, I think they deserve to win today, because I think we let them win the game. But I think we had the better quality, but we just let them just walk all over us.
You can throw any kind of cliche you want out, and cliches are cliches because they're true. And the best teams have the best players with the deepest squads, and the lower you go down the table, the weaker the quality and the shallower the squad. And I look at this today. I mean, Wolves are not in a position where they can afford to be without the likes of Ruben Neves. Ruben Neves is not a player they want to see get injured, particularly in that midfield. And this is your opportunity. I'm going to give you your chance. Who's in there in the middle of the park today? Your favourite, Leandro Dendoncker. Yeah, take it away.
I don't. The one thing is, he had a really good game against the Villa. I think that's one of the better games that I've seen him. That
was more down to Villa.
Yeah, but I think that's a lot of where the root of the problem come from today, Ben. I think if you don't have Neves there, I think you're losing a lot of beef in that midfield. I think he's become that player for us now, where he's before he got injured a few weeks ago, he's showing what the potential of what we signed him for 4 years ago. I think he's seen that midfield maestro, someone that can run a game. You think Dendoncker's going to do it with the greatest respect to him? He's not going to. João Martino, I think, with the greatest respect to him as well, I love him to bits, and I think I'd still have him at the club, if I'm going to be honest with you, but it's not going to work with the midfield too.
Yeah, and
unless you're playing as well, someone as strong as Neves in the middle of the park. I just don't think that...
They went Fabio Silva up top on his own with Huang and Jimenez in behind. Is that looking
that didn't
towards?
work either. That didn't
Is that
work.
looking towards next season just to try something, just to get? So we've talked about Fabio Silva quite a bit of how young he is, and I think he is improving. Certainly since of what we've talked about throughout the season. Is this Bruno Lage saying, yeah, he is going to be my guy next season? Raul Jimenez has been tremendous, but he's not the same player after that horrific injury who would be. And I'm going to try and sort of lighten his load and find a new role for him. Huang to me looks a more natural number 10 just off the main striker than Jimenez does. Jimenez would be that main striker if you were going to play that way. That's just the way it looks to me.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, Ben, I think it was more of a case today where you look back on it. I think it tells you more about that he doesn't fancy Trinko. I don't think you're going to see him next season. I think not so much square pegs round holes, but I think he was, obviously lost Pedence. Who's starting to play well, but Pedence is Pedence. So he'll be one of the ones that won't be surprised to see him go in the summer because it's pointless having a player that can only play a third of a season for me. But that's another topic for another day. I think it was a case of he just wanted to plug a hole, and he saw him as a person to do it. Ironically, with the stick that he gives to Fabio Silva, out of those three, he was the best one today. I think he done the most running. He asked the most questions. He moved into space the most. A bit surprised when he got took off. I would have took Wang off personally. You talk about Wang as a number 10 off of Jimenez. I see very, very similar quality. Obviously, he's not as good of a player as him, but when he first came to the team at the start of the season, when he was playing up top with Jimenez, I thought this is the goalie that looks like the replacement for when this is finally the Jota replacement. The way that he plays, like he seems to have that little knack of making a little bit of space for himself, and he has that knack of winning the ball, and he looks better down the middle to me. Like he looks better as a natural down the middle striker. Playing, if not playing in the two, at least playing on his own up front. I'd rather have that than Jimenez at the moment because I think with Jimenez, I think he needs that quality around him to bring other players into the game to help him. If that doesn't sound too silly saying it, he hasn't had that this season with Neto being injured. Traore just being Traore now is obviously looks like he's out the door. I think it was a case of he tried to go there and he tried to try, and I think he went there looking to win the game. If I'm going to be honest, he looked at the first 20 minutes, seemed to cause some problems, but I've seen this game 4 or 5 times this season. You could play this and put another kit on Burnley, and I've seen it this season where you see the encouraging signs. The play between the three of them wasn't too bad for me in the first 20 minutes. I felt like, I don't know if you saw that move that they had where Semedo got the ball through. Oh, you did actually, sorry, you mentioned it where Johnny had the shot away and they made that pass.
Yeah.
And the three of them seemed to be involved in the move. Yeah, it would have been a contender for goal of the season for us this season if it had gone in. But after that, it just seemed like, not that they ran out of ideas, but it just seemed like it didn't gel together with them. I don't know, if I'm going to be honest. I think the draw is still out with Silva for me. I don't think he's going to score 20 goals a season. I think there's a player there, but I don't think he's going to score 20 goals a season.
So 8th in the league, 3 points off of West Ham with a game in hand. West Ham's defeat today was a bit of a blow for them. They've obviously got their eye on the Europa League sort of semi-final. 7th place would get Europa Conference League. Is this the usual Gavin Longthorne line, I don't want European football yet, or are you still going to be pushing for, or would Europa Conference League, would that count? Would you look at what Leicester are doing this year in that and think that really ain't for us? We want to be looking higher at the Europa League itself. I mean, they were in the race for top 4 up until about a month ago.
I don't know if I'm going to be honest with you, Ben. I just don't see it as a serious competition in my eyes. Like, it seems like the Europa League's already the B League, but I can take that. But that for me as a fan, look, I couldn't take it seriously. Look, I'm just being completely honest with you now. Look, I'll ask your opinion back at you after I've finished my point and say, look, would you, as a Villa fan, be happy being in that competition? I just couldn't take it serious. Like, you know, you're talking about a competition there where, you speak about Leicester, Brendan Rodgers didn't even know he was in it until a week before they played the first fixture. Like, I would rather hold off and go for one of the two other ones and do it properly and finish in the top six. I think finishing in the top six is a good benchmark of if you're ready or not. Over
Yeah,
38 games for me, I think it shows you whether you've got enough in the tank to do something like that.
I didn't know it existed as a competition until, as I say, Leicester were about to start playing in it. I thought they'd been knocked out of the Europa League, and I thought
Mm.
that was that. What is this? What is this Europa Conference League? But yeah, I think you're right. I think the top six is a good measuring stick. So that brings us to this coming Saturday at Molineux. Are you saying against Brighton it's going to be a very sort of end of season affair? Both teams in mid-table, both teams relaxed. So in theory, should you see a really good game of football this Saturday?
I hope so because it's. I don't think it could be more disappointing than today as a Wolves fan. Um, it- we're a funny team, man. Like, I think we're a very funny team. Like you talk about, you know, we've come out in games that we don't think we should have played like it. We come out in fifth gear and bomb teams away like the Watford game and other games this season. And then today you think, oh, this is how we've got to play in this game today, just because we've got to show that we want it. And then we have 15 minutes and it's like the crescendo's gone and it's just completely flat. And I don't know. I don't know what to expect going into that game Saturday. I think a lot of it depends on how Brighton come and how Brighton come and play as well. They're playing some decent football at the moment. I know they were 2-0 up earlier and they let the lead slip, but they're not playing some bad football the past few weeks. Um, it's tricky. It'd be disappointing now. We talk about this Europa Conference League, we talk about the Europa League and finishing in the top 6 or 7, sorry. But I think considering that we've maintained this 8th spot for the majority of the season now, it'd be disappointing to let it slip with other teams breathing down our neck now. You mentioned Leicester, um, who are, I think they're 7 points behind us now, and they've got 2 games in hand on us. Newcastle just like a freight train at the moment for some reason. It seems to be winning games. It's 4th, 5th game they've won on the bounce, isn't it now? The team's breathing down our neck now, so it'd be nice to see them go out there and at least try and maintain that 8th spot and just show some effort to the fans after that today, because I think they owe them performance after that today.
Yeah, Brighton doing well on the road just lately, winning at both Arsenal and Spurs in recent weeks. But like you said, being pulled back in a South Coast derby against Southampton, they were 2-0 in front. It's the West Midlands Football Podcast here on this Sunday evening. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. It's myself, Ben Ellis, and Gavin Longthorne. We welcome your views if you want to leave us. A couple of people have liked and loved what we're doing, which is good on Facebook, which is nice to see. Staying in the Premier League, it's up there, or maybe even down there, with a candidate for worst game of the season in the Premier League at the King Power Stadium yesterday. Very 0-0 between Leicester City and Aston Villa. And as far as I was concerned, and seemingly as well, Gav, as far as Steven Gerrard is concerned, the rot was stopped, having lost 4 on the bounce going into this break because of the FA Cup semi-finals last week, which is why we weren't here, of course. Clean sheet on the road. The onus is on the home team. Like we said, cliches are cliches because they're true. Take the result and move on.
It's not a bad result. You know, take the scoreline away, Ben. It's not a bad result to go there and come away with a point at all to Leicester. You know, we talk about that they've hit a rocky patch at the moment as well, not seeming to be on that same momentum that they had last season, but it's still not a bad result to go there and get a point. And it's also stopped that run that you've got as well. Also, it's easy to slip into that losing habit, isn't it? So you've stopped that rot now. just move on to the next game. It'd be frustrating though, wouldn't it? I mean, because from what I heard, I'll be honest with you, I didn't see much of the game. But from what I heard, it seemed very not flat, but I think a lot more could have been given. But you've got to do what you've got to do, and you've got to play what's in front of you sometimes. And going to places like that can be very sticky and very, very hard in a gritty game. And say come away from there with a point, which at 12-3, I'm sure as a Villa fan you would have took.
Yeah, no question about that. There's some interesting things going on, and we've talked about them in sort of recent weeks with Dom about where Villa go from here. I heard a pundit on TV, I can't remember who it was, say yesterday that the one thing you get from Steven Gerrard is that he's really honest. And he'll say how it is. He won't get too excited if they've won. He won't go overboard if they've lost, but he'll say sort of how it is. I would kind of challenge that in so much as to say, I think he's being kind of political about it in terms of how he's conducting himself in public. It's just me reading between the lines. I've got no information on this. But I can't believe that over the last month or so, the way sort of results and performances have been going, that he hasn't regularly read the right act to quite a few of them in the dressing room for sort of the non-performances that they've been given, like against Wolves and the way they capitulated second half against Tottenham before the break and what have you. So he'll come out and they say he's honest. But he's come out and he said, we've trained well, we've done this, we've done that. But I don't think he's been honest there. I just think he's been tactful and saying what's to keep him kind of motivated. But I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he hasn't made his mind up on a good 5 or 6 of them in the squad for the summer. And I don't think in terms of his plans, I don't think he's got any concerns about moving them on or not having them involved whatsoever with the first team, because he's just decided that they're not for him. And yeah, we'll rattle off some names. I'm going to say them. I'm going to say Tyrone Mings. I'm going to say John McGinn, Douglas Luiz, Leon Bailey. I mean, there's 4 straight away. Is El Ghazi going to come back from his loan at Everton? He's not going to be in the plans. Matt Targett's finalising a permanent move to Newcastle, so he was never in the plans whatsoever. Then there's the question of the 2 up top. Danny Ings, it hasn't really worked out. So, he's going to come in. He's got his fresh ideas. What's he going to do? Please don't let us end up like Everton with the amount of money that we're looking to outlay to bring in bang average players, sort of 2-3 years down the line. So it's a big summer coming up, isn't it, Gav? They've got some big decisions to make, and they've got to get them right.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying about that. I think that he does seem like he's being tactful what he's saying, and he seems to be he's trying not to ruffle feathers, really, is he? But I think I would have confidence that I think he'd have the goal to get rid of some of these players, like you say. Like, I think Tyrone Mings wouldn't be a surprise to me. I think it'd be a shock for a lot, but it generally wouldn't be a surprise to me. You talk about Danny Ings, it's disappointing for some reason. I think sometimes with players, they'll just go to clubs and it just doesn't seem to click. He hasn't done particularly too bad at Villa, but for some reason it just hasn't clicked. Leon Bailey, I think that at the time when you signed him, I thought this could be someone who could be a real good weapon for Villa from what you saw in Bundesliga. Sorry, but it just seems like it hasn't translated over to the Premier League, which is very disappointing. We spoke about it a few weeks ago about the word comfortability. I think sometimes it's the fact that I don't think players do particularly bad at clubs. You say, like Douglas Luiz, but how many seasons is it now that Douglas Luiz has been there? Is it his 3rd or 4th season? I think sometimes it's a case of you need to move players on and change it when you're still doing relatively well. Because I think it can not turn stale, but I think players can get too comfortable and you can get set in that way, and it's hard to get out of it. And then, as you say, speak about clubs like Everton where they outlay this amount of money for players and then they stay there too long. And then, case in point, what we're seeing now where they've dropped into the bottom 3 today. But I would have confidence in him bringing in some of the right players. I think you have to move some of these players that have been here for 3 or 4 seasons now, Ben, because I think it doesn't hurt to do it. I mean, they're not his players as well. I think he's got an idea of who he wants. I think he's got an idea of what type of play he wants. And as you say, I think some of these ones that he's playing, as you say, Tyrone Mings, he could ring off a couple of others as well, where he's still playing them because I think he has to play them because it's a settled team. But I think he's already made his mind up and he's thinking, "You're not for me. You're not for me." You can tell. You can just tell. I think as football fans, you get that vibe sometimes and that feeling, don't you? Where you think this just looks like it's going to be a case of they're going to be moved on in the summer. He said the Danny Ings one's very disappointing for me. I thought he would have gone there and it would have been a case of, I think that would have been a very good bet for him to have got 20, 25 goals this season for Villa. And I'm not just saying it because he's sitting in front of me, but I think that would have been a good £5, £10 bet for someone to make at the start of the season when he signed him, because you've got those players that could have given him the service, but it's disappointing.
At the start of the season, I would quite confidently say that there's not a club outside what is regularly regarded as the top 6 in the Premier League that wouldn't have jumped at the chance of signing Danny Ings for £30 million. And, there's no danger at all. You can reel them off. I think West Ham would have had him, Brighton would have had him, Wolves would have, maybe different with Wolves because of the sort of the continental style of play and stuff like that. You imagine him doing a job at somewhere like Brentford or Leeds or where, there would be plenty of takers. So we felt that, we were dealt the kind of the Grealish blow, but this is what's happening. I think it's interesting how, and I think it will tell its own story in the summer, is if Steven Gerrard lets go every player that Dean Smith signed the previous summer. I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
It wouldn't be a surprise. I don't think it would be a surprise, Ben. I mean, you ring them off and it's hard to see a success there. Like I said, Leon Bailey, I just don't get what happened there. I think he could have been a really good player, but it just doesn't seem like it's translating over, as you said, with Dan. He'd make a statement. It would make a massive statement because they're not his players either, are they? And I think it's easy sometimes where clubs, talk about managers, but clubs like the board and the owners and the investors give this money to sign these players, and they're sitting on the bench. They could be thinking, "Well, why isn't he playing him?" Or they could be in his ear saying, "Why isn't he playing him?" But they're not his players. That's it, isn't it, really?
Here's a big question: are Villa safe?
I think so, yeah. I think you are. I don't think you've got anything, or Villa fans have got anything to worry about with that. I think it's tied up now. I think it's genuinely tied up now. I think that with those two that are at the bottom, I think they're a definite. I think Everton would play Burnley and the beat us, but I think it's between those two now. I genuinely do. I think it's going to be a game of back and forth with those two. I think you're definitely safe. I think you're definitely safe.
Not mathematically yet. Still got to play Burnley twice in the run-in. That's the elephant in the room for me, because if and it's not inconceivable now that Burnley could win both of those games with the kind of role that they're on. That would obviously, providing Everton's running is particularly tough, that Everton don't pick up too many points between now and the end of the season. It brings me on to this weekend. The prodigal son will return to Villa Park with his Norwich teams. I can put any kind of biblical epithets you want on that. The last rites for Norwich City. They're just about down. He's Dean Smith. We're not here to talk about Norwich, but he's giving it his best shot, really, with what he's got sort of down there. he probably would have turned it round eventually, but the Villa board felt they needed to make a change and they wanted to go and get Steven Gerrard. Realistically, they could have waited until the summer and got Gerrard. Quite honest, that's the way it's looking like to me anyway. As far as that is concerned, but if you're feeling a bit sort of jittery, and like I said, still got Burnley to play twice, and we're away at Manchester City on the last day of the season, that worries me too. You know, I want this sort of done and dusted by the time we get sort of anywhere near there. Norwich at home is the game you want, isn't it?
You'd think so, because I don't know. It depends how Smith goes there. You know, I think he's going there. Is it the first time he's played him since he's been sacked, or have you played him?
No, we won 2-0. We won 2-0 at Norwich in December. Yeah, 1-2-0 at Norwich in December comfortably.
Just double checking.
Yeah.
But it may be a case of he wants to go there and he does the team talk based on the fact that he got the sack. But I shouldn't see that there'd be too many problems. I think when he went there, Ben, you talk about it's a Midlands podcast, but I think he went there that if he went there and kept them up, it would have been a bonus. But I think they still had half an eye on next season with him being appointed there. With the Gerrard appointment, I think it felt like the right time when they got rid of him. I feel like it felt like the right time bringing in Gerrard for Smith. I think Smith it just ran its course, and it felt like the natural time and the natural thing to do. Talking about the weekend, though, I think who'd be a football fan, though, you think it should be a game that would be not a free hit, but they should be able to show the quality against them. But you don't know in this game, do you? You know, I always thought that we was going to go to Turf Moor Stadium, was going to outclass Burnley, and this happened. I don't know. What's your feeling going into that on Saturday? Then, what would you think? What should you think should be going on?
I'd like to think we win comfortably. I'd like to think we won comfortably. We've got better players than Norwich. Norwich have been pretty much rooted to the foot of the table pretty much since Eddie Howe came in at Newcastle and started turning that around. What worries me is that I was thinking the same way a few weeks ago when we were about to play Watford at home and lost the game 1-0. You know, so we've got previous. We've got previous as far as this is concerned. And I don't want to be a negative Nelly before Villa fans start really panicking and giving me some stick about this. But, you know, if we were to lose on Saturday, you know, we've already lost to Watford at home. As we said, quite conceivably, we could lose to Burnley at home with the role they're on. And they're three of the four teams that are really in it as far as the relegation battle is concerned. Then, yeah, the league table doesn't lie. And you kind of you are where you are. I'd like to think we'll get an early goal Saturday, settle down, start to put Norwich under some pressure, just win the game and get to 40 points, and then you can relax. Then you can relax, even though mathematically it wouldn't be sorted. At least you can relax.
Well, don't you think? Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
That's what I was just going to say. You don't want to be going into 60 minutes at 0-0, do you? On Saturday, I think that would be the worst case scenario. I think that's when they're going to have a little sniff and they're going to fancy not a smash and grab, but they're going to fancy going into the second or third gear if they have it. Maybe, aren't they? I just from a neutral fan's point of view, I'll think you're fine. I genuinely think you're fine. I think it's a case of where you are is where you're going to be. I think watch this space for the summer. As you say, I think you're going to get some outgoings, but you might see some exciting incomings as well. And I think it's just generally just give Gerrard I think this is where you're going to see whether he's going to fulfil the potential that people see in him as a manager and a coach.
Absolutely. The West Midlands Football Podcast here, Sunday evening. You with myself, Ben Ellis, and Gavin Longthorne. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, and we are on Twitter as well, looking back at the weekend's action. And as we weren't here sort of last week, I think going into the Championship now, we can kind of incorporate what we're saying into what happened over the Easter weekend as well. And Birmingham City, 2-2 draw with Millwall on Saturday. A very late Benica Phobie penalty. You remember Benica Phobie from his days at Wolves, Gav, of course. Sealing the point for Gary Rowett's. There's irony as well. Gary Rowett's Millwall, after Blues have been ahead twice in the game, and the general feeling from Blues fans coming out of the game afterwards that at least we've seen our team put some effort in today. At least we've seen them put a shift in today. Compare that with Easter Monday away at Blackpool, 6-1 defeat, where by all accounts they just turned it in. Did the Blues players, and I don't know if you saw on Twitter that Lee Bowyer sitting on the bench at half time. He didn't even go into the dressing room. And then in his post-match interview said that was his darkest day ever in football. And I think, well, if you put that into some kind of context, for Lee Bowyer to say that, this is a man who once got into a fight with his own teammate on the field when he played for Newcastle, when he got into a scrap with Kieran Dyer and was dragged out by the manager at the time, Graham Souness, in the press conference. You know, that was humiliating. But he said that the Blackpool game was his darkest day in football. Now, it was 20 minutes after the game had finished. Emotions were quite raw. But they got a response. And really, with what they done, and bear in mind, they were 2-0 up on Good Friday against Coventry as well, and ended up losing it 4-2. You know, those were kind of two harrowing results for Blues. So for them to see a little bit of effort put in against Millwall will be pleasing.
Yeah, good result, and especially after those two. The Coventry one was disappointing, and then the Blackpool one, I wouldn't have saw that coming. You know, Championship's a very unpredictable league, but wouldn't have saw that coming. It's a good response. Millwall are very, even though it seems to have gone away from those days, it's a very tough team to play in that league. They're an established Championship team, as are Blues now. It's just that they can be tricky ones, can't it? You know, it can be either three permutations type of game, and they've gone out there and they've shown a performance, they've given a performance to the fans. I sometimes wonder whether it's psychological, not that they're on the beach, but that they know that there's not a lot left to fight for this season because they're mathematically safe now. You know, they are, I think it's 6th or 7th bottom, aren't they? But they're not going to be going anywhere. So you wonder whether sometimes that does bleed onto the pitch and it does get into the psyche of the players. And not that they don't give 100% effort, but they don't come out of, say, second or third gear in games. But no, terrific performance. Disappointing that the late goal got conceded and they didn't get the 3 points. But it's not a bad point to have against a team like Millwall. I think they're a very shrewd team in that league. It's typical that it has to be an ex-Wolves player that has to get the equaliser as well in a Phobie. But no, as you say, Ben, reaction. I think the most important thing was the reaction, especially to that result on the Monday as well. We did see that from Blues on Saturday.
We can't ignore the fact that the points deductions for Reading and Derby are what have kept Blues out of the bottom three. They would be in the bottom three if those points deductions hadn't happened. So, in essence, nothing's changed from last season to this season. There's speculation on if Lee Bowyer will still be at the club next season. After the Blackpool game, you just said for all money. Well, no, that's not happening because, you know, why should he stay? He's not being backed by the owners. We know that. We know the stuff as far as off the field goes with Birmingham City. But at least with Lee Bowyer, you've got somebody who gets the club. Birmingham City is a very tribal football club, and I mean this as a compliment. You know, it's like Newcastle in a way. You know, you need to get it, you need to feel it in order to be a part of it. You look back at Aitor Karanka last season. He'd never had a clue what Birmingham City was about, and he just didn't want to be there. He'd made his mind up probably halfway through the season, and they, you know, if they hadn't changed it when they did and bought Lee Bowyer in, they'd have gone down. So to just keep changing it year on year, you know, it's not a bottomless pit of people who get Birmingham City, who can come in and manage them. They've got to back him. They've got to back him, and they've got to give him the tools to do the job. Nobody's talking about pushing for the playoffs or a promotion bid. They're just looking for a bit of sort of respectability, you know, to not have to dread 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. And that's not too much to ask. It's not too much to ask from a fan's point of view. And something's got to change. I hope it isn't Lee Bowyer. I hope he sticks around. But the ownership isn't going to change. 2 games to go. Away at Cardiff on Saturday. Absolutely nothing riding on that at all. And they finish the Sunday after. Is it the Saturday after? Saturday after. On the 7th, the final day of the season, the championship is the 7th of May. All games kicking off at 12:30. So 2 dead rubbers is what they've got, because Blackburn are sort of there or thereabouts, still pushing for the playoffs, but their wheels have really come off in recent weeks. So yeah, nothing for Blues to worry about in any way, shape, or form. Just need to get it out of the way and then see what the summer holds, and then we jump. To be honest, Gav, we could just play a tape. At this point, for the last decade, we could just play a tape saying the same thing, because nothing does change.
You know, you put out some good points there. Then look, you know, talk about with Bowie. If he does stick around, though, we give him some stability, which I think they need. I think they need it. Look, they need oxygen. I've got to be honest. I think they need that at the club. People give him a lot of stick, but I quite like him. He's a football guy. Like, you can tell he's a football guy from the way he talks. He takes it to heart. He wears his heart on the sleeve, and he doesn't lie. He does. He will always give an honest assessment of Blues after a game. You know, like you say, he gets it. He gets that you know, he's played there, and he does get it. He gets it. It's a massive club. It's got that community feel to it, and the fans will die for the team. Like, that's it, isn't it? Really. You say you could play a tape. That is probably a fair assessment. You could probably play a tape and could probably play for the next 4 or 5 seasons and would still be talking about it the same. You know, it'd just be a case of take this name out and insert this name in place. But it's frustrating, really, because that league, the greatest respect to teams that are in it, if someone like Fulham is walking away with that league, it's not the best league in the world. I think if a team goes into the start of the season and they put a good run together, put a decent team together and apply for each other, they're always going to be in a shout for the playoffs.
Well, look at Luton.
It's a hard league to get out of.
Look at Luton.
No, exactly. Yeah, exactly. This is the thing, Burnley. I mean, you know, if you get that run together and you get that emphasis and you get just that winning habit, it's not a million miles away. It genuinely isn't. I think there's some players that Blues. I think there's players in that Blues team now that I think have got it to put that together, because they've been in that league long enough to, like I say, with Bowyer getting Blues, I think they get that league. But you just need to fine tune it and put a different couple of guys in there. You know, if they can make that Lowell Taylor move permanent in the summer, I think that would be a brilliant bit of business, because I think he is guaranteed goals in that league if you give him the right service.
Yeah, he's almost become a bit of a cult. He's almost become a bit of a cult figure at Blues. You know, I'm interested in kind of plots and subplots with Blues. I think that there's definitely been a fallout between Bowyer and the likes of Christian Pedersen. in recent times, and I think he's one player that Bowie would want to move on if he indeed stays. But it's just it's a soap opera off the field. Is Birmingham City, and it's going to run and run and run unless something changes out in the Far East. Box to Box podcast is on Tuesday, where nationally we debate stuff. It's where we come from all of the areas, but this is our area. This is the West Midlands, and we're here on a Sunday night looking back at the weekend's action. Staying in the Championship, it is now mathematically impossible for West Bromwich Albion to reach the playoffs. They could still have been in with a chance had they not fluffed that penalty against Coventry sort of late in the day at the Hawthorns yesterday. They're in 13th place, Gav. And Albion fans 3-4 months ago, Valerian Ismail, he's got to go. This is the worst football we've ever seen. He's got to go. Can't take this anymore. Got to change it. Okay, they've changed it. They bring in Steve Bruce. Safe pair of hands in the Championship. You know, although has gone through an extremely rough time at Newcastle, so maybe he's come back into football a bit too quickly. 13th place. They've dropped from 5th to 13th. And I've seen a bit of them. As I say, Easter Monday was I watched them at Nottingham Forest on Easter Monday, and the plaudits go to Forest for the 4-0 win, but I thought Albion were abysmal on the night. And, you know, Coventry have had a good solid season, so it wasn't necessarily going to be the easiest game at the Hawthorns on Saturday, but 0-0, mathematically impossible to reach the playoffs now. Steve Bruce has been told you'll be here at the start of next season, so he's got a 1 year, but, you know, that you could leave at any time in the next year at West Bromwich Albion. So we know that he'll start next season at the Hawthorns. I don't know how Albion fans will necessarily feel about that. The problem is, Gav, they've got players who are tied down on Premier League contracts with admittedly lower half of the Premier League, but Premier League wages. They've got players in that squad that are tied down to contracts to 2025. I mean, what kind of business model is this?
Well, this is it, isn't it? I mean, you talk about the challenge. I don't think it's so much. Albion fans don't like Bruce, but it's not. Bruce has gone in there in the way he's tried to get them to play hasn't worked, but I just don't think he has to be the one to take the blame, as you say. I think the club's been pulled from the last 2 years. You know, talk about stability in players with Aston Villa, but, you know, I suspect you've got players there like Livermore, Bartley. Talk about those two. There's that many that I could probably forget that have been there now for 4 or 5 years plus.
No, I'll run them off for you. Sam Johnston, Carl Bartley, Jake Livermore, Sammy Ajayi, Darnell Furlong. You know, there's 5. That's half a team. Straight away, that's half a team. You've got Dean Garner, who hasn't done it this season. You know, you've got Matt Phillips has been there forever. They just haven't freshened it up, and it's caught up with them. They went into another season of the Championship having just been in the Premier League. You know, you've got these. It's like, you know, that magic trick where you got the 3 cups and you put the ball under and you swap around. So move around. You got Fulham, you got Norwich, you got West Brom, Fulham, Norwich, West Brom, Fulham, Norwich, West Brom, Fulham. One's going up, one's going down, one's going up, one's going down. They just assumed they were going to be in that again. They just took it for granted. And, you know, Norwich will come down. They'll be in that boat again next season. Fulham were in that boat that went back up. Fulham will spend a lot of money. They may come straight back down again. But West Brom just assumed this year that they were going to be there or thereabouts. And they had no real strategic plan for going back up to the Premier League. They just assumed it was going to happen.
Well, yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think it's a case of, like I say, we took out the players that you just rang off. I think they thought they would have been good enough to get them up there. They're not good enough to get them up there. I think the managerial appointment was at the start. I still stand by that. I think they needed to get rid of Ishmael. I just didn't. It just never worked. I don't think it was ever going to work. So having him in there in the first place was just a recipe for disaster. I think if they get rid of Bruce and they say that he's got 1 year, but you never know in football, they might decide to think, well, there's someone out there now that's left Burnley that they might want to sniff around and have in there instead. If he goes there, that's another question. But I think getting rid of Bruce would be a bad move in the summer. I think they've just got to tell him that, look, we want to get back up there, we want to do it this way, but we need to start getting rid of some of this dead wood, and we need some fresh blood in here. And they'll just look like a style team, Ben. Whatever. I'm not saying it in a nasty way, because I'm sure there has been performances this season where they have played okay, but they just look stale. You know, and with the greatest respect as well. I mean, Andy Carroll's not a bad player to have in that league, but if they signed him as a star player in January, then I'm sorry, but it's not gonna happen. And you speak about the players that they've already got there that have been there a while, but there's another one that Ishmael brought with him. I'll argue with any Baggies fan. I've watched it a few times. Alex Mowat can't run a midfield in the Championship in the top half. Like, he can't do it, and he's one of these ones that I think the managers seem to like him for his work ethic, but he can't do it. Like, I'm sorry, and then I think they just need to rip that spine out and start again next season. Like, I think it is. I think they're just going to just rip it out, get some new players in there, and give Bruce some freedom to. Because I think if Bruce is there for a season or two, they'll get promoted. I don't think he's a bad manager to have at that level. I really don't. Like, the football may not be attractive, but if they want to get back there, then there isn't many worse you can have than him. I genuinely don't think so. I know that Jonathan, who talks in here, will probably chew me out for saying it, but I don't. I don't think it's so much the manager's fault. I think it's the way the club's been run. And I think the players that got there just aren't good enough.
I can't disagree with any of that. We're short of time, so we'll gloss over this quickly. Walsall winding down the season in League Two, getting a win against Port Vale, doing the double over their previous manager, Darryl Clark, which is particularly satisfying. Michael Flynn, as we mentioned with Stephen Gerrard, with Villa, and maybe even Bruno Lage at Wolves. Michael Flynn has his plans at Walsall, and he knows who he wants, and he knows what he's doing in that league. And I feel positive about how Walsall are going to get on next season. The one thing we're going to end on this week, Gav, whether you agree with me or not on this, do you think it's absolutely scandalous, the lack of national coverage that Solihull Moors are getting? Or would they rather it be under the radar? Yeah. Would they rather it be under the radar and be quiet?
I do get what you mean, because it's a club that are near Birmingham that look like they're going to be finally cracking into that football league. So it is a story. But I think the manager at Solihull Moors will be thinking, like you say, the longer it's under the radar, the better for them. They're in touch distance. You know, if they become people's second team, if they become a story, it might be a case of, we don't want this, we don't want the coverage. But no, I do get what we mean to an extent, because, especially in the Midlands as well, because we watch Midlands news. It doesn't seem to be something that's getting covered so much. It might be because non-league football is not as attractive as league football. But I've gone to. This is going off topic a bit, but I've gone to Tamworth a couple of times in the last season or two and watched some games that have been more entertaining than league games that I've watched. So, I do get what you mean, because I think it is a bigger story than I think people are thinking. But I think the manager, head coach, at Solihull Moors will be thinking, just leave as it is. Leave as it is. Like, it's the whole thing in football, isn't it? As soon as you start talking and you start getting publicity, it's got that tendency to go pear-shaped, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I just love the story. I just love the story of the whole thing. I mean, if you look, Neil Ardley was a good footballer in his day as well, and it's nice to see that he's going on to be sort of a very good head coach. But I did this with Dom a couple of weeks ago, and we highlighted this. I'm going to keep highlighting this until people are going to get the message about how brilliant this story is. I'm going to run down the league table from the top half of the National League table. So we've got Stockport, who look like they're going to go back to the Football League in first place. Then you've got Wrexham and Halifax, who make up the bye positions in the playoffs. So how the playoffs work in the National League, you've got second and third will then play whoever wins the two teams that come through fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh in playoffs, if that makes any sense at all. So you've got Wrexham in second, then you got Halifax, Solihull Moors, who we talked about, fifth Chesterfield, sixth Grimsby, seventh Notts County, eighth Dagenham and Redbridge, ninth Boreham Wood, 10th Torquay, 11th Bromley, 12th Yeovil, 13th Southend United. Every single one of those clubs, apart from Solihull Moors, recent Football League experience. Relatively speaking, big football clubs. And what they're doing is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And it should be celebrated. Whatever happens, however it turns out.
Well,
and
if they do get promoted,
you'd probably fancy them to at least get through to the playoff section against either Wrexham or Halifax, because it looks like Stockport are going to go up. But come on, let's hear it for Solihull Moors. Let's have it for Solihull Moors, because they are doing tremendous. And in what I mean, you look at the way the season's panning out. I mean, we had high hopes in August when we came back. You know, we're going to start going to games again. Villa have faded away in the Premier League. Wolves were pushing for Europe. Look like they're going to be fading away as well. West Brom, as we've just said, had sights of automatic promotion. They've dropped like a stone. Blues have been saved in the Championship by points deductions for other teams. Walsall flirted with relegation from the Football League until they brought in a very good manager for League Two level in Michael Flynn. So, you know, where are the realistic stories that we've got to be excited about at the end of the season? It's Solihull Moors. Solihull Moors, tremendous.
Well, it'd be interesting for Midlands football if it did happen, Ben, because you've got that other Football League team in the mix there, and then, like I say, it's on that route. No, not a lot of people pay attention to it, but it's on that route away from the airport and other things as well that people can go and see them. You know, when we talk about where it can lead, there's a team who were like Solihull Moors not too long ago in Forest Green, who have now got promoted to League One the weekend. So if they do get that promotion, it can you never know where it can lead. It can go on to better things for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the remaining games this season, Solihull Moors, so having beaten Altrincham on Saturday, they go to Weymouth this Saturday, then at home to Bromley, and then Dagenham and Redbridge in the final home game of the regular season, and they go to Boreham Wood on the final day in May, so May 15th. So hopefully they can secure their position in the playoffs. I don't think they can get into the higher reaches of the playoffs. Mind you, they're only 2 points off of Halifax, though, having played the same number of games. So it's not inconceivable that they could get into third or even second place in the league, which would be an even greater achievement for the Moors. So yeah, on that, we will leave it there. The Box to Box podcast, like we said, nationally, we'll be looking after things, looking back at the big stories. So the Premier League title race, Everton in the bottom three now, how that's going to play out. Maybe they'll touch on the sad news of Oldham Athletic making history of being the first club ever to play in the Premier League that got relegated from the entire Football League pyramid, with some rather distressing scenes on Saturday. So all sorts of topics like that will be discussed with the guys at a national level this Tuesday from 8 o'clock. We'll be back with the West Midlands football podcast next Sunday at around about 8 o'clock. For Gary Longthorne and me, Ben Ellis, enjoy your football this week, and we'll talk to you next Sunday.